This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming back my good friend, the beautiful, the talented, and hilarious Alix Elias. This will be Alix's fifth appearance. The last time she was on was in 22 when I was doing my anniversary show. Alix is coming back on, and we're just going to catch up. You know, she's been pursuing stand up comedy quite a bit lately in New York. And I want to talk about some acting roles that she did that I've never talked to her about before, especially A Night in Heaven. 2 years ago, I reached out and said, "Hey, you want to come back on for the 40th anniversary of A Night in Heaven?" And she had some personal stuff going on, but I'll ask her about it today. And she's got an awesome YouTube channel called Alix Elias, where she posts videos where she's telling stories, and her stand-up videos are there as well. And it's going to be another great conversation. I love talking to Alix. She's so awesome and such a great person. I adore her. Also, happy 90th birthday, Elvis Presley, the king himself. I can't believe it. It's hard to fathom just what Elvis would say or do today if he were alive. But we all love Elvis. He's touched the lives and hearts of so many generations of people. And my heart goes out to the victims of the Pacific Palisades fires. I hope everyone out there is safe and keeping it safe. This is a horrible tragedy, and it's just awful when this happens, and it's been happening way too often the last few years. So yeah, here is my new interview with Alix Elias.
How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you, love?
Well, I'm okay. I'm a little worried about all these fires in LA.
Oh, yes. I know one person who lost their house, but fortunately nobody else so far. But it is awful, really awful.
Yeah. I mean, the whole area is at risk, wherever, anyway. But where you are is okay, yes?
Yeah, we're in Modesto. Nothing happens over here, thank God, knock wood.
Okay.
But I am fantastic now that I'm talking to you again.
Oh,
And
thank you.
of course, and I want to start by asking you, how's the comedy world treating you?
Well, I'm taking a break. I mean, I've done pretty well. I mean, I've won some stuff, but I'm getting bored with my material, so I decided to take a class at Second City is doing a stand-up class, and I thought I'd do some write some new material.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that this would be a good way to get going. And I have a friend, an acquaintance really, who also wants to do it. So that means I wouldn't be the only one in the class with a bunch of, teenagers.
Yeah.
So that was attractive. But then he got the norovirus, so the first class is Sunday, so we'll see how that works out. It's always something.
Yeah, it's always something. Because I remember you telling me during the pandemic that you had taken classes for Judy Carter like years ago in
Yes.
LA.
Yes. Yes, I did. It was I was in LA, and so this was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it was like the 80s or 90s, and
Right.
at that point in time, they were using a lot of stand-up comedians in sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really wanted to do was get on the sitcom.
Yeah.
So I took this class and started doing a little comedy, and then I got a sitcom. So I dropped. I kind of did it on and off for about a year, and then I came back to New York, and I did it in New York for on and off for about a year. And then I just dropped it because what happens with me is every time I get going in comedy is I get an acting job. And I'm really basically an actress, so
Yeah.
that's always primary with me. I mean, in a way, the more successful comedians, they tour, they do cruise ships, and I don't want to do any of that stuff, you know. I really am not interested in that aspect of it. And then what we all want to do, of course, is get on television, because that's where the money is.
Right.
But it's interesting because it's really wide open. And what I'm doing now with the YouTube channel is I've been interviewing various of these older people that are doing stand-up or getting into performing now that they've spent their whole adult life doing something else, you know, and now they're retiring and they've got time and they've got some kind of income, you know, even if it's just Social Security. So they can afford to do it, and it's so open, you know, literally almost anything can be considered stand-up comedy. It doesn't even have to be funny.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of them are not funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's just something that people want to see, you know, other people getting up there and exposing themselves to ridicule, or it's just, I don't get it. But, you know, it's certainly, I have a natural ability to entertain and to be funny. I don't even know where it comes from. It's not conscious. And so audiences respond well to me, and of course that's wonderful to be on the receiving end of that, because, you know, I've been pretty depressed with my husband dying, and so that live interaction has been terrific in its way. I don't know, at this point, I don't know whether I'm going to continue with it or not. I'll see what happens out of this class. You know, because I used to work with all the Second City people. I mean, the first Second City people.
Yeah.
We're talking about, you know, Paul Sills and Paul Dooley and Andy Duncan and
Richard Libertini.
Dick Libertini. You know, I mean, I've worked with all of them one way or another, mostly in commercials, because when they came to New York, when the original from Chicago, because they started in Chicago and I wasn't part of that, but when they came to New York, a lot of them started doing commercials because what they could do also was right. I mean, that's one thing that the whole theater game, Second City technique gives you, is an ability to write. It kind of frees up that creative end of things, which is not true in acting. You know, in acting you have scripts. So anyway, so they would write with more or less success, and I acted in a number of commercials with them, and then I was in a show with Tony Holland.
Oh yeah.
2 shows actually, and Paul Dooley and I and Winnie Holtzman.
Wow.
Of all people from Wicked, we're in we tried to do an improvised soap opera called Small Town Falls. And now that she's so successful, I'm trying to get a hold of her because I wanted to send her all this material that somehow I ended up with. Because when you're improvising like that, we taped it, you know, audio taped it. And then somebody had to sit there and write it out so that we could go back and edit it and, you know, learn it and rehearse it like a play. That was kind of how we did it. So I ended up doing that a lot, and I've got a lot of that material. And I thought, you know, maybe she'd like to have it, particularly since Paul is now 96.
Wow, 96. That's crazy. Yeah.
I don't know if he's still acting, but he's still, the reason I know that is because I looked him up on IMDb, and I thought, wow, 96. So, you know, I just thought maybe she would like to have these tapes, but I don't know how to get a hold of her. I asked my agent, and he gave me the name of her publicist. When I tried to get a hold of the publicist had died. So, I don't know. I guess she must have another publicist, I'm guessing. Anyway, that's one of my many, many little projects that somehow I can't seem to quite finish. How are you doing? How's your health?
Well, it's, good, but there's diabetes and other things. But all in all, I'm fine.
Are you taking any of the Manjaro or Ozempic stuff?
Metformin. Metformin is the blood sugar pill that I take.
We have metformin, right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking Manjaro and I've lost 20 pounds, and I love it.
That's good.
The only trouble is I'm not diabetic, so I have to pay for it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not my my commercial is running, the new one with Drew Barrymore.
Oh yeah.
For the bingo, and even though I screwed up, well, I didn't exactly screw up.
Uh-huh.
They called my agent and they said, can she jump up and down on a bed?
Yeah.
And I said, so the agent asked me, and I said, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm willing to give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
So my techie friend came over, and I sort of jumped up and down on the couch cushions, not doing a very good job of it. But then I thought, well, so they said they were going to get a stunt double. And then I thought, if they had some kind of harness, like I could be supported from the ceiling,
Mm-hmm.
I could do it. And so that's what I thought we were doing. But when we showed up, of course, none of this had happened, except that they did have a stunt double who was 30 years younger and 30 pounds lighter, so it wasn't exactly a perfect match. But you don't see it. And then I did my best, but I just found, to my amazement, that I really could not jump.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, higher than maybe an inch or something. And then, when you get to be this age, there's always this fear of falling and breaking your pelvis and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
which happened to my upstairs neighbor. And
oh wow.
so anyway, I did it. I did the best I could, and then I wasn't sure. This production company is from Israel. So here we are in Manhattan, and they bring this entire production company from Israel, which is in the middle of a war.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of, the whole shoot was difficult, and then they didn't get to me till the very, very last shot. So we just kind of dashed it off the best we could, and I thought maybe they cut me out of it. But I was delighted to see that I was still in it. So depending on how much they use it, the one I did before, they just ran it.
Yeah.
And I made a ton of money. So I'm hoping that that's what happens with this one. That's showbiz. Who knows?
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about some acting roles that we've never talked about before. One of your earliest TV roles was on Route 66. How was that experience?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh, that's right. Route 66.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what I did on that, but what's his name, the star?
Martin Milner?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He was awfully nice.
Nice.
I remember, yeah. And then I don't remember the other guy. Maybe I didn't work with the other guy.
Kent McCord?
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't remember. The one I remember is Martin Milner. And I actually ran into him. I think we worked together again or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because, which was really very nice of him, because in those circumstances, they're under a lot of pressure, the regulars.
Yeah.
And, people coming in and doing these small parts, often they just, they don't exactly treat you like an extra, but they're not particularly welcoming.
Oh, yeah.
They've got, bigger things on their minds. I can't remember what I actually did on that. I do remember doing it now that you mention it, because it was on location.
You were a car hop.
What?
You were a car hop in that episode.
I was a car hop.
Yeah.
Well, not on roller skates. I would have remembered that.
Yeah.
Because I probably would have killed myself.
Michael Parks and James Ferrantino was also in that episode.
Really?
Yeah.
And I worked with him later on Hooperman, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Small world, huh?
It is. It's funny. Last year, I talked to Carol Demas, and she also.
Yeah.
She also made her like TV debut on Route 66. I didn't even know that they were casting out of New York in those days.
Well, I think, as if I'm not wrong about this, I think they were shooting in Florida or something.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yes, but they were
Well,
they were going on
marginally
location.
cheaper to bring actors from New York than to fly them out from California. I think that was probably it.
Yeah. It's interesting. It was a great show, though. It was a great commentary on Korean War veterans, about how the system failed them after they came back from the war. So they're like, okay, let's go where the wind takes us, kind of a thing.
So, was the Route 66 part of it, was that the that they traveled around the? Obviously, I didn't watch this series.
Yes. Yeah, they just got into the car one day and say, let's go where the world takes us. And then they ended up solving mysteries and solving crimes along the way and stuff.
What did they live on? Did they work?
No.
They would get...
I think they would do like, a local hire thing when they would come to each town, and stuff.
Jobs, yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird premise that way, but unrealistic, but it was a great show,
Oh, good.
How about guest starring on The Defenders?
Oh, I don't remember doing it. What was The Defenders?
Robert Reed and E.G. Marshall, they're lawyers.
Robert Reed. I remember Robert Reed, yeah, because you could hardly hear him. And I remember being, because I was used to theater.
Yeah.
And I thought, he's just throwing this away. But that was his technique, which I began to realize later after I did more film, that, you could, in fact, that was kind of the Bob De Niro technique, was that he would have the actors whisper, and then he'd just turn the sound up, so he would get a more realistic, with people that weren't, like fabulous actors maybe.
Yeah.
They weren't overacting, they were much closer to being realistic. So that's what he was doing, I guess. And I didn't understand that and just thought, oh God, he's just... But then I don't know. I mean, did his character come across in a vivid way as a...
No, I never watched...
I haven't seen that one.
I never watched The Defenders. It was never on when I was a kid, and I think I've seen like clips, but it's been a while since I saw it.
I don't even know, but I remember working with him on the set.
I was on YouTube recently, and I saw Naughty Nurses.
Oh, Naughty Nurse, Paul Bartel.
Yeah, I love how it opens. It opens with you crying about the blood that you have all over you, and you're like washing your hands and stuff. It was so cute.
Right.
Yeah, you looked so adorable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Paul would throw me a little job here and there. I mean, when I met him originally, he had just gotten out of college, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he was working for his father or his stepfather, who had an ad agency.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did one ad of some sort for him. But at the time, I had been on Broadway in Oh Dad, Poor Dad. And so he was impressed.
Right.
And he had all these projects that he'd written, but he couldn't get the financing. So he had written a kind of a sprawling, ambling kind of script about this young couple that got all involved in what in those days was kind of like really hip, which was like happenings and just kind of big, kind of like the English raves, where a whole bunch of young people would go to a warehouse and have a party or something like that. I never did any of this stuff. I mean, I just acted in it. And so that was basically the plot of that film. And then he couldn't get the money, so I didn't do it. But he stayed in touch. Mm-hmm. And every now and then he'd give me a little job.
Rock and Roll High School.
Excuse me. Rock and Roll High School was really because of him.
Yep.
Because Rock and Roll High School was so low rent that the woman who was actually playing my role left in the middle. She'd shot some, and then she left because she got a, quote, real acting job, working for somebody who wasn't Roger Corman.
Yeah.
So Paul was already in it. He and Mary were playing, she was playing the principal, he was playing the art teacher or something. And they needed to have at least one more teacher.
Right.
I mean, at one point there was this faculty meeting, and there were three of us. There was the principal, the art teacher, and the gym teacher. That was because they didn't cast the rest of the faculty. So Paul said, get Alix, and my agent didn't want me to do it, but I said, sure, what the heck. And, so that's how, so they reshot some of the scenes they'd done with the other actress, and then they just cut the ones that they could. I mean, it was done really on a shoestring. And then the second day I shot, the first day I shot, and I sort of met everybody. And then the next day, I showed up, and as I was arriving on the set, there was an ambulance leaving. Right. And I said, what happened? And they said, oh, well, the director had a heart attack. So Joe Dante was shooting second unit. Right. And he took over. Mm-hmm. So I said to him, is this a different day in the script? Because what I wanted to know was, am I wearing the same wardrobe? And he said, give me a break, Alix. I've only read the script once. And I said, I've only read the script once, because I was thrown in the middle. Well, it turned out that Alan Arkus, it turned out he didn't have a heart attack. Yeah. He was just having a panic attack or something like anxiety attack. So he was back the day after that, or the day after that, or something like that. So he ended up finishing directing the film. But you know how those, well, I guess you don't, but they're under budget. They don't have enough money. People are quitting in the middle. Yeah. It's just, it's amazing they get finished at all. And I was very surprised that was actually a hit, because in many ways the humor was so stupid. Yeah. I love it, though. And but I mean, that appealed to people, I guess. And then the big draw, though, was the Ramones. Now, I didn't even get to meet the Ramones. Yeah. Because they weren't in that particular part of the film. And they hadn't even showed up yet. But, so I was sorry that I didn't meet the Ramones, but anyway. I met one of them. It wasn't great. But I did interview Alan last year, and God, that guy is... Alan Arkus, yeah, he is, that guy is history, I'll tell you. I mean, it was... Nice guy. It was great talking to him. Yeah, and I reached out to Paul's sister, Wendy, recently. I haven't heard back yet. Do you know her? Yes, I do. I do. Yeah. I was quite friendly with Wendy there for a while. I can't remember what. She worked with him on a couple of projects, I think. Mm-hmm. And then I met her socially because Paul and I kept a social relation. I even stayed with him one time when I was in L.A. He let me stay in his spare room for the 3 months or whatever it was. I would go out there and I always had a different arrangement. Every time I went, I stayed with people. I switched apartments so that they could have my apartment in New York for 3 months or whatever. Mm-hmm. And one of those times, but then after he died, I never heard from her again. So I don't know. She didn't really, she was adventurous. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't exactly, as I recall, I could be wrong about this, it wasn't exactly an artistic family. Yeah. But they were very supportive of Paul. Yeah. And the funniest story I know about Wendy was that when she was going to college, and I think this was in Boston, she decided to get a job as a go-go dancer in a bar. And I mean, this was totally out of character. But it was very brave of her, I thought. I mean, I would never have done that. But she did that. So she was like Paul in that regard. she was interested in new experiences, but I think the last I heard from her, I think she got married and had kids or something. I mean, ended up with kind of a middle class life.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But aside from, I can't remember what she did on any of his projects. I don't think she acted, or very little.
Very little, but she was in Death Race 2000 with him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I would love to have her come on and do a little tribute, because I think that he was such, like, in a big way, a pioneer, because that was at a time when most gay people were not accepted by the mainstream, but it seems like him, Paul Lynde, Charles Nelson Riley, they all kind of got accepted back then.
Well, yes. I mean, and Paul, the thing about Paul was that he was so unusually imaginative.
Mm-hmm.
He had all these kind of disturbing, crazy fantasies, and he stuck with it. I mean, he didn't try to clean up his act, if that's the right way to put it. He, but he was basically a nice person. I mean, he wasn't an evil person, which you might think about somebody that would make a movie like Eating Raoul.
Yeah.
It was just the ideas that kind of set off his wacky imagination. Well, if you do get Wendy on, ask her about that job she had as a go-go dancer.
I will.
I'm sure she'll be taken aback.
How was the Barney Miller experience?
Well, that was more like my kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had a wonderful cast of basically theater actors from New York.
Yeah.
He was a crazy person.
Hal Linden?
But he liked me. What's his name?
Hal Linden.
No, not Hal Linden. The guy who ran it, Danny Arnold.
Oh, yeah, Danny Arnold.
Well, he was a control freak. I mean, he really ran it. I mean, he had every aspect of it was under his control, from wardrobe to... And for some reason, he liked me. And I think he was the one that cast me from... had seen me in the background of some other actor's audition tape.
Mm-hmm.
Real. And I did 2 of them. And then I was in a series, Stat. It was a hospital series.
Oh, yeah.
But at that point, Danny Arnold he had a very serious heart condition and died soon after that. And he was so difficult to work with that even though it tested off the charts, the networks didn't want to work with him.
Oh.
Because he was just too difficult. Nobody could tell him anything. But it's difficult. I mean, I liked him because he liked me and was very encouraging. And as I say, it was just a wonderful cast.
Oh, yeah.
I think the writing was good. Oh, there was one funny thing about it, which was that they'd start shooting at 9 in the morning or whatever it was, 8 in the morning, which meant they had to get there like at 7:30 to do makeup and hair and everything. And they would just keep shooting till they were done. So that means sometimes you were there for, 12, 15 hours. And if you'll notice in a lot of the episodes, after the first half of the show, because they said it in sequence, the second half of the show, everybody's kind of quiet. Well, that's because they're exhausted.
Yeah.
It's 3 or 4 in the morning, but that's how he liked to work. So that was fine.
Yeah, Steve Landisberg, he came from stand-up.
Yes, and he was actually. I thought they were all hilarious.
Yeah,
all of them.
Very funny.
And I don't think they had a clinker in the bunch. And then when they would lose somebody, like I think a couple of actors died during it had a long run, and whoever he cast, he had a good eye.
Yeah.
He had a good eye for talent. And the Stat thing was terrific. The actors were just terrific. So that was a real shame that didn't work out.
When I reached out to you in 2023 to come back on, I wanted to talk about A Night in Heaven because I went back at that time and watched it. It was the first time I had watched it in years, and I thought to myself, this movie should have been good, but it's not. But there's some funny moments in there.
It was the director. It was one of those films. It was written by a woman who's famous, and I can't think of her name, although I can see her face in my mind's eye.
I'll find it.
And it was taken away from her by John Avildsen, I believe, directed it.
Yes, and Joan Tewksbury. Joan Tewksbury.
Yes, Joan Tewksbury. And he didn't really have a good sense of what it was about.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it was a woman's story, and he made it into more of a kind of a conventional sex thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just didn't. I mean, it had a good cast, and I enjoyed working on it, but it was the director, I think, on that one.
Yeah, he did that with a couple of movies. He did that with the John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd movie Neighbors because he had never directed. He had done one comedy before. I think WW and the Dixie Kings with Burt Reynolds was like the only other comedy he did. And he's more of a drama guy. He did Rocky and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was much more of a motto point of view. In fact, it was absolutely a motto point of view.
Right.
So it was, yeah, and he wasn't very approachable either.
Oh yeah.
It was just one of those not very happy experiences. I did have one funny story, which was I was acting. We were in a nightclub. We were shooting mostly in this nightclub in Florida, and so they had borrowed this nightclub or hired it or whatever they did.
Yeah.
And the people that owned it or worked there were mobsters. they were mafia guys.
Yeah.
And so, I always try to be pleasant to everybody, and so I would say hello and stuff like that. Well, I remember we were shooting for a couple of days. One of them came up to me and said, "What is it with this cheap production?
Yeah.
Hey, you don't have another dress? You're wearing the same dress?" Dave, well, they didn't understand about continuity. We were shooting it over like a week, but, and the story happens in one day, so that's why I only had one dress. But he was being protective. He thought I deserved another dress.
I love that part when Leslie Ann Warren's all like, "That guy's in my class," and you're like, "What about his ass?"
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, you're like drunk. You're like drunk and gone by that point.
Oh yeah. Oh, I got to dance with Chris. That was my big.
Chris Atkins. Yeah.
I'm so thrilled that I get to dance with the cute guy.
How about Miami Vice?
Well, Miami, don't talk about clothes. My God. Yeah, Miami Vice. Well, it was another one of these location jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What struck me about that one was that they paid more for my wardrobe than I was paying to get to act in it. I mean, I think one of those stupid dresses cost like, $800. And, but that was really part of their whole shtick was the look. Yeah. There were only certain colors. You could only wear certain colors. And their wardrobe people got a lot of money to play with. So I had actually worked with, what's his name, the lead?
Oh, Don Johnson.
What?
Don Johnson.
Don Johnson. I had worked with Don Johnson on like his first film. I don't even have a credit on it. But, and I had to do a sort of a semi-nude scene, which was so embarrassing to me that I had my name taken off of it.
I gotta look that up.
I can't remember the name of it. Honest to God, I can't remember the name of this film. So I had been like 18 or 19, and he was probably like 18 or 19, or maybe he was a little younger.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I said hi to him, and he remembered me, and the black guy was very nice. I mean, I can't remember the plot.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was an owner of a small business or something like that.
Right.
And, so it was kind of like a quick 3 days in Florida, wearing a whole lot of expensive clothes and just trying to keep my head on straight here. Because they shoot so fast. And, of course, as usual, I hadn't actually watched the show.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know, exactly what was going on. But, I mean, I got the gist.
Oh, the Fat Boys were on there, and Annie Golden.
In that same episode?
Yeah, that's an interesting guest starring episode.
Well, I didn't. I'm sure I must have seen the episode at some point,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean that I was there on the same days that the other guest stars were there,
Yeah.
Although I knew Annie Golden. I mean, I know her not terribly well, but enough to say hello to. And I don't remember seeing her. So she must have been in a different part of it.
Yeah.
Something that was shooting on a different day when I wasn't there, because once you were done, they wanted you out of there because they didn't want to have to pay for an extra day of the hotel.
Yeah. I talked to Sandra Santiago like a month ago. She told me she did not enjoy doing that show. There was a lot of patriarchy and misogyny behind the scenes.
Well, there might have been, but they were nice to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can certainly say that about John Appleton, but Miami Vice. I mean, I guess it just depends on the day, or how much you have to do, or, whether you're taking your clothes off or not.
Was that movie The Magic Garden of Stanley Sweetheart?
Yes, it was. Oh, my God.
I have never seen that. I want to see it now just to see you semi-nude.
I think I'm still in it. I don't know, as I say. Oh, God.
One of my...
There's a lot of interesting New York actors in it, though.
Oh, yeah. That's a great cast here. You got Diane Hull is in here, and Victoria Racimbo, who I had on twice. I loved her. She passed away. Karen Lynn Gorney from Saturday Night Fever. Brendan Maggart, who I've talked to.
Brendan Maggart, yeah. I used to run into him occasionally. He never let me forget it.
Yeah.
Well, remember that film we were in? And I go, Brandon, shut up.
One of my favorite sitcoms of all time is Married with Children, and I remember when you were on there. Yeah. I love that. Was that a fun experience?
Well, I wouldn't exactly call it a fun experience, but I enjoyed it. It's one of those jobs my agents didn't want me to do. They thought it was too low rent. But I thought that it was very creative. And one of the episodes I did, I mean, it could have been an off-Broadway play. The plot was that the husbands move up to the roof for some reason. Mm-hmm. They go up to the roof to fix the TV aerial or something.
Yeah.
And they enjoy being on the roof so much away from their wives that they move up to the roof. And they've got a little barbecue going. One of the guys is peeing off the edge. I think they cut that bit. And the wives are down trashing the husband, sitting in the living room and trashing the husband. But it was like there was a lot of tension on that set. I'm not exactly sure why.
Oh, yeah, I heard that Ed O'Neill and Amanda Bierce hated each other.
Was Amanda Bierce a neighbor?
And Ed O'Neill, yeah.
The neighbor. Yeah, there was some problem. She wanted to be a director, I think was part, and they did let her, if you're on a series forever and ever like that, they generally will start letting the actors direct. Mostly it's the guys that want to do that, but so that's what she wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I think she's gay, I'm not sure.
She is.
But, and he had and I didn't know this until I was on the show, he had a very strong theatrical background.
Oh, yeah.
He did serious regional theater for years.
Oh, yeah.
Where he ever went to L.A., and he knew that I was a theater actor.
Mm-hmm.
So he was particularly nice to me. He came up and, said hello, and, you're from New York, and did you do that theater, and blah, blah, blah. And so I really grew to appreciate his acting work.
Mm-hmm.
I think he did a terrific job.
Oh, he was
and
great.
What's her name who played the wife?
Katie Seagal.
There was a lot of very skilled performers. And then the writing was, it's peculiarly subversive.
Yeah.
In a way that made it kind of much more than just your average, senseless, stupid comedy. And it was making a real point in a lot of ways about, the drawbacks of kind of the American the American dream lifestyle, or whatever it was. I don't know, anyway. And then they weren't treated very well.
Yeah.
And then I think the original writers were fired.
Oh, yeah.
And it never recovered from that. And then one day, I remember hearing an interview with Ed, and he was saying that he heard that the show had been canceled on television. They didn't even have the courtesy to tell them, to tell the actors that the show was over. I guess I just didn't have the guts.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah.
So again, it was like one of those, it wasn't exactly fun.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I would have done more of them if they, offered them. I definitely enjoyed working. I mean, the whole thing with the wives hanging out together. And it was a good group of actresses. I mean, what's her name, who played the mom on, the one you never see. I can't think of her name right now.
Uh-huh.
Show. The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yes. What's
her name? Big fat Italian girl.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I can't think of her name either.
She was one of the wives, and we got friendly for a while, and then she kind of went on to other things and dumped me. But it happens,
Yeah, I remember.
Everybody out there is trying to hang around with people that are doing better than they are.
Always, yeah.
Yeah.
You were a contestant on Super Passwords.
Somebody just told me that one of my credits is on some game show, which of course I don't remember. But
okay.
There were a couple of game shows in which they asked me. They were like pilots.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying them out, and I guess they must have gone on the air.
Yeah.
But it turned out to not really be my kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just the way my brain works, like if I'm really bad on names, for example.
Yeah.
That's if you're trying to remember. I can usually remember what it isn't, but actually coming up with the name of something, even like not only people, but, nouns. So you really need a kind of a quicker, more verbally, kind of more verbal dexterity, I think.
Well,
but I did like two of those. So if one of those was whatever it is, password, then yes, I did.
Well, back
the
then.
Other one which I've got this credit for was, to tell the truth, I swear to God, I was never on that show. But who knows?
Well, back then, celebrities used to do game shows all the time, which you rarely ever see these days with all the egos that are out there. But remember, like, the Battle of the Network Stars?
Yes, vaguely.
I found out that the reason why that show existed for all those years was because everyone was competing for higher salaries behind the scenes, but they didn't want to tell the public that. Isn't that crazy?
That's showbiz.
Yeah.
Well, particularly in television is really all about the money.
Yeah.
I mean, even good television is, all about the money.
Yeah.
That's less so in theater, and I don't know. My film experience is limited.
So back to your YouTube channel. I am loving it. I love that Cher story you told about being
Oh
roommates with
God,
her.
it's so funny.
Yeah. Oh my God. Did you ever see her belly button?
I don't think so.
It's iconic. Yeah.
It is.
It
Is it an innie or an outie?
it's like a little of both.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's
Well, I'll have to take a look next time I see her in one of those scanty costumes. I mean, it's a shame we didn't stay in touch because I really liked her, and
mhm.
but we were both in just such a state at that age of, uncertainty, and our lives were just suddenly exploding in all sorts of different directions. We were just hanging on for dear life, but she certainly made a terrific go of it. Wow. And I love her voice. I just think she's got a fabulous singing voice.
The best. The best.
Yeah. So I understand you had Jill Dalton. Did you interview Jill?
Oh yeah, I had Jill on, and she was just wonderful. I loved talking to her. She had such a great sense of humor, and she spoke very highly of you and Richard.
Oh, well, that's sweet of her. Yeah, she was, well, it's really, I got inspired to do the YouTube channel when she did her YouTube channel.
Right.
Although it's really quite different.
Mm-hmm.
Because this group that we work in, this group of actors, she's been trying to write a book
Right.
about her life and was unable to get it published in the normal way. And that was the kind of the basis of the YouTube channel. Then she thought, well, maybe she'd do it on online, but then there's various problems with that as well.
Oh yeah.
And but so the YouTube channel seems to be working out really well for her. I mean, I have to figure out how to get more viewers. That's my problem.
Yeah.
If you've got any viewers out there,
Well, you mentioned
Alix Elias channel on YouTube. Give it a try.
Well, you mentioned in that Cher video that you were part of the Peppermint Players, which
Yes.
there's nothing written online about them. I'd like to know more about them. You should do a whole video about that.
Well, it was kind of my first job, and in New York, that is. I mean, I had worked. I did a summer stock in D.C., where I'm from. The Peppermint, apparently, it's still going on. It was all I know about it. It had already been going on for a number of years, and it was successful.
Mhm.
They had 3 or 4 fairy tales that they would dramatize, and they had costumes. They never cleaned the costumes, so we had to wear these disgusting costumes, which you probably couldn't be cleaned anyway because, it had glitter and, fairy dust all over it, God knows. But they were Paul Libin, who for years was a kind of a low-rent producer of plays in New York City. I don't know if he ever did Broadway, but he definitely did off-Broadway, and he was a good businessman. So they got, not only did they have the costumes, which were not bad, I mean, that is to say, from a design point of view, not from a cleanliness point of view. And they had music, they had original music, and what's his name, Bob Moss, who had been in one of them, that's how he got involved with it. And he went on to create, I think it was the Playwrights Horizons or something like that. I mean, he ended up being a notable director, producer on his own. And he was directing the one that I was in. Well, there were 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
You did 3 in repertory. We did Jack the Beanstalk, and then the one about the princess who falls asleep for a million years, and the prince has to come and kiss her to wake her up.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big hit with the kids. And then I can't remember what the third one was. But we did 3 of them, and then we toured all over the New York City area. We went as far as, well, you're not from this coast, but Bucks County,
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania, and we would go to Long Island,
Yeah.
Avalon, and the thing that really got me was that they paid us $5 a show, and they took taxes out of it.
Yeah.
So we were getting like, $3.45, and you'd be on the road for hours going to these gigs, and you didn't have enough money to buy lunch. I mean, it was, I don't know what they've done, and I believe it was equity, because I was equity by that time. But I mean, I guess they were thinking more in terms of you do this little theater stuff, and it would just be in some little theater in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
But not these. So I was very surprised when we were doing that episode. I looked it up, never dreaming in a million years that it would still be happening. And there it was online with the music. So I guess they're still going on. I don't know Paul just passed away years ago.
Yeah.
Producer living, but I don't know, maybe his children are doing it.
Yeah.
And there is a market for it. I mean, I could see it making money.
Yeah.
And there's this endless supply of actors who work for nothing, practically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Peppermint Players story, I guess.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You got to be a part of that, though. I'm curious, like, how have you been doing with the grieving process?
Well, it gets better over time, and I'm at the point where I'm just feeling very lucky that I had him at all.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know that he had this defective heart, but when we were separated for many years. We met through our parents. Actually, our fathers went to college together. They were both geologists.
Right.
And so I met Richard when I was 12
Mm-hmm.
for the first time, and then later on we met in New York because we both gone to New York to be actors. But it's a long story, but that didn't work out, and then we were separated for really a long time, like 25, 30 years before running into each other and, sort of taking up where we left off. But so we didn't know that he had this problem, and it was kind of misdiagnosed, and then he had open heart surgery, which in retrospect, I think probably wasn't a complete success. And, but that's all I can think of, just that I'm so lucky that I had him.
Yeah.
And, I've been meeting other women in grief groups and widows, although that's another whole story about how difficult it is to find a grief group.
Yeah. Do you fear death?
No, not really. I've been kind of trying to get prepared, because you get to be, I am now older than anybody in my immediate family. Mm-hmm. I'm older than my mother was when she died, and my father and one of my brothers and my sisters died, and I'm figuring, not quite sure how much time there is left.
Right.
So I'm really kind of approaching it more like trying to get everything straightened out and figure out how to handle that, which is not my kind of thing. Legal stuff and is just not my strong suit. And I'm still performing. The fact, I was looking at, somebody was talking the other day about the union or something like that, and whoever, 140,000 or 200,000 actors, of which only 2% actually make a living at it. And I'm one of the 2%.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing.
That is.
I'm still making a living. I never done anything else. Well, I wasn't a waitress once for 2 weeks. But, it's just amazing that I'm still working. I'm just stunned. You know who also was talking about this was Betty White.
Oh, yeah.
You're saying, I can't believe it. I'm still working. I'm so lucky. And that's kind of how I feel. But you know how that is. I mean, I could never work again. I mean, that wouldn't be a surprise either.
Yeah.
It's just so impossible to predict. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out how to go out with dignity.
Yeah.
And relative, not making a huge problems for everybody else. How do you feel about that?
Well, I lost 4 friends last year. They were all in their 40s. There was COVID, pneumonia, drug addiction, all of that. It was just an awful year. And I worry about that. It's funny, I spent most of my life fearing it. I stopped fearing it after my car crash, which I'll be celebrating 10 years in a week or so. And now I'm back to thinking about it again because of the diabetes and just everyone else dying around me,
Well, diet can help. I mean, because I've always taken actors, we take vitamins, we exercise, we do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because we have to be competitive.
Right.
And, but I'm really wondering now if that hasn't helped me a good deal, especially nutrition. So I've been, I'm taking the stuff, the Ozempic, Manjaro stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then, but you still have to diet, But while you're dieting, you might as well eat something nutritious instead of a candy bar. So I've been doing that. I know that diabetes especially can respond very well to diet.
Yeah.
So you might,
that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing,
Yeah.
last 2 years, been on and off. I start a diet program soon. I don't know much about it. It was a doctor recommendation thing, but fingers and toes crossed. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I remember you mentioning to me that you lost your virginity in a green room. I'm curious.
Yes.
I'm curious. How old were you and how was it?
That's quite a story. I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I wrote the story down.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I was doing some writing, and that was one of the things that I...
You should write a memoir, I'll tell you, because you've got all these great stories.
Yeah, I was just working on... this is another one of those non-jobs. I got this job working on Kind of Pregnant with the Amy Schumer film. And in fact, what happened was they never actually got to us.
Mm-hmm.
So we were there for 9 days. We got paid a whole chunk of money.
Yeah.
And then in the end, they never got to our scene. So
oh, God.
So we're no longer in it, I guess. Anyway, that's what I was working with 2 other actors, and that's what they were saying. They were saying, my God, you've worked with so, you've done all this stuff, you should write it down. So, but I don't really want to write I don't really, like Jill wrote this book, I don't really want to do that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm okay writing sort of episodes, like chapters or something. And now, I write the stuff that we do on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we must be getting about to the end of the time period here. I've got an audition, believe it or not.
Nice. Nice.
Yes, it's for a TV show called Elfest.
Elfest.
I haven't watched it, but my techie friend says I'm right for it. So, anyway, I've got to change and stuff for that. But
real quick.
Happy New Year! Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Do you have any birthday plans coming up?
I'm supposed to go visit a friend of mine in Florida, but I'm already trying to figure out how to get out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I like to do? I would really like to go to the plaza and have afternoon tea.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do that. I mean, of course, that's costs like $100 or something, but
Yeah.
it is my birthday because I don't really drink, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought that might be fun. So we'll see
Okay.
if I do it or not. Okay. Nice talking to you.
Alix, I love you. Thank you for coming back on.
You're a
And
sweetheart. Okay, bye-bye.
thanks for the Christmas card. I always look forward to getting those.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. Alix Elias, ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, I love talking with her. I'm so glad that we could talk again and talk about roles that we haven't talked about before, and all those great stories that she has. I really hope she considers writing a memoir because there's just too many great stories there. And yeah, she's doing the YouTube channel, but it would be a great record document. It would be just great to have all that stuff tangibly. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes!